It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
Let's get right to work, shall we? How about your top 5 at 6 to kick off your week? The brackets have been revealed on the men's and women's side. The madness of March is going to kick off this week. Your top 4 seeds on the men's: Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Okay, sure. I have paid zero attention to college basketball thus far, but I will tune into the tournament as I'm wont to do. In the women's side, UCLA, South Carolina, USC, and Texas. UConn, featuring Hopkins' own Paige Beckers, has a number 2 seed. I did look to see that there are 8 teams from the Big Ten in the men's bracket.
No Gophers.
None of those are the Minnesota Gophers.
No.
On the women's side, 12 teams from the Big Ten, which, I mean, let's just stop right there. The Big Ten has 18 teams.
Yeah.
12 women's teams from the conference. Also, not a team known as the Gophers. We got to work on our hoops.
Bummer. Yeah,
Man, our backyard hoops are not keeping up with the Joneses.
Do you usually do a bracket? Did you do the one at work last year?
I did not last year for whatever. I usually do a few brackets. I will do a work bracket. I got a nephew who does a bracket. Okay. I got friends that do, and I do just as well now as I ever did when I actually used to follow the sport. It's never changed.
I did the office bracket last year for it's like $100 in Devani's or whatever. It was the first time that I ever done one, and I came out on top. I won.
That's how that works.
Yes,
yep, that's exactly right.
And now I'm never doing it again.
You will be
remain undefeated.
That is honestly the only strategy with a chance of success is one and done. So in keeping with the very thing that has destroyed college basketball, well done, Ryder. One and done, in and out. Number 4 on your top 5 at 6, Castoroides ohioensis. That's a mangling of the Latin word for a giant beaver. Get your head out of the gutter.
Who doesn't love a giant beaver?
Minnesota's official fossil designation. The state's official fossil may very well become the giant beaver. By the way, first I've ever heard of this. A beaver that used to reach lengths up to 7 feet and weighed 200 pounds.
That's too much beaver.
That's way too much beaver.
Yeah.
Boy. This is about 10,000 years since they've been extinct, but giant-sized beavers lived around North America right around the end of the last ice age is when they ran aground, if you will. The giant beaver was unable to adapt to the rapidly changing landscape.
Oh, no.
As they shrunk in size, I guess. Then they realized, like, I don't know, maybe we should just work on these rivers and creeks. Maybe that's our thing. But there's legislation afoot to make this the state's official fossil. As a man who spent my entire life with the nickname Beaver, you'd think I would have known there was a giant beaver back in the day, but no, this is the first I've ever heard of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no clue.
Fun stuff.
Doesn't really change anything about how I feel about myself or my nickname, oddly enough. Number 3 on your top 5 at 6. I can't believe we're still talking about this guy, Don Gorski from Wisconsin. Known throughout the landscape as the Big Mac guy, has hit another milestone. Don Gorski is 71 years old. In 1972, he went into a McDonald's and for the first time in his life ate a Big Mac. And he loved it so much, he ordered 2 more. Then he went back the same day and had 6 more.
Jeez.
9 Big Macs in one day. And he has not stopped. He has eaten at least 1 Big Mac a day since, and he just crossed over 35,000 Big Macs in his life.
Here he is. Take a listen.
You better appreciate this because I say I had to slow down to 1 a day for 3 days here. It's driving me nuts. So this is definitely 35,000. It's no more, no less. I've counted every single one. Excuse me.
He's got all the receipts in order. He, of course, discusses the fact that he does have OCD, obsessive compulsive what OCD? What is it?
Disorder?
Thank you. Disorder. Yeah. I was like, it's not a disease. What the hell is it? Which is hardly a surprise. I'm going to suggest to you, however, there's no way this is the only manifestation of this OCD. I mean, You can't just put it all in one basket of Big Macs. There's no way this guy gets out of the house without tying his shoes a couple dozen times. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are worse things to be obsessed with, I guess. I mean, thank God it's not a bottle of gin every day.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine how big his nose would be at this point? So 35,000 Big Macs, which is 34,900 more than I've had in my life. And I just don't know where it all goes. He does walk like 6 miles a day. So anyway,
good for him.
Good. Yeah. No, you know what? Honestly, good for him. You've won the game of life when this is what keeps you happy.
For sure.
On to number 2 at your top 5 at 6. Target Field 2025 enhancements have been released. Check this out. At Minnesota Twins home games, a few great little additions to the experience. Market-style concessions. Okay. This is a new market-style open concessions layout in sections 105 and 109. It's like 41 point-of-sale locations to make food and beverages more convenient. You can grab hot foods, grab-and-go items, ice cream, et cetera, et cetera. It's a fancy way of saying they got more crap and they make it easier for you to pay for it.
Yeah.
They also have something called Go-Ahead Entry, optional facial recognition ticket-based system. If you have tickets to a home game, you can register on the MLB Ballpark app, and then without getting your ticket scanned, you just show up and it scans your face, the secret cameras, the secret police, the Stasi. Suddenly I'm in East Berlin in 1967. I don't know. This kind of freaks me out.
Oh, it freaks me out too.
They've also upgraded the cell phone tower. There's a 5G upgrade. You can post your social media photos and videos faster now. They'll upload much faster. You know what would be amazing to me is if they enhanced the team to like 90, 92 wins. Yes. You get a 90-win team in there. No one's going to give a rat's ass how quickly they're uploading their Facebook videos.
Yes.
Let's get to work on that, and the rest will follow. Free your ass and the rest will follow. No, I'm sorry. Put a good team on the field and the rest will follow.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Golden Valley. You're never going to be Westopoulos to us. You're Golden Valley once and forever. The fine people. Glad to have you with us this morning. Number 1 in your top 5 at 6. It is St. Patrick's Day. Big day in the former Gorman clan every year. And if you're looking for, the Gormans are who came across many, many years ago. A lot of green foods, a lot of green drinks. People going to be offering you. Go ahead and have a green beer. It's probably just fine. They always talk about what sort of green foods are you going to eat? Well, there's like broccoli and lettuce and green bean. There's all kinds of green foods. You don't have to dye food green. Just eat your burger, but get a side of get a salad on the side, and then it does the same thing.
Done and done. What's a better drink for St. Patty's Day, a green beer or a Guinness?
Oh, a straight up Guinness. There's no question. Yeah.
Good deal. Good answer. That's the right one.
Yeah. Oh, come on now. I've enjoyed Guinness on St. Patrick's Day, and I've enjoyed Guinness, I would guess, every other day of the year as well, at least one. That's something. You know what? Screw the 35,000 Big Macs. Is there a calendar day where in my life I haven't enjoyed a pint of Guinness? And I should get to work on that. Yeah. I still have time. I still have, maybe I'll just have one pint a day for a year and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's probably a good plan, I should say. There's your top 5 at 6.
Sports history with the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
All right, let's look back. It is St. Patrick's Day. On this day in 1999, the Toronto Blue Jays fired their manager, Tim Johnson. He'd only been there 1 year. He did a pretty good job. They won 88 games the season before, just missed the playoffs. And Johnson, throughout his first season as manager, would get the team fired up in the locker room. A lot of his fiery locker room speeches involved his experiences in Vietnam. A lot of stories about resilience, fighting back against all odds.
Yes.
And then in November of 98, right after the season ended, he was asked by a journalist, so I looked into your records. I couldn't find proof that you were in Vietnam. And he goes, oh, yeah, no, I never went.
What?
Yeah. He said, no, I just used those stories to fire the guys up. And then when asked, well, does that make you feel like there's no credibility? This is the greatest quote I've ever heard. Credibility to me is going out there and watching the game, watching the players play for you. That's going to show if you have credibility or not. Or not.
Not
The players did not agree, and they got down to spring training, and it was the biggest story of the whole exercise, and it just grew and grew and grew, and the team and owners finally went, we got to get rid of this knucklehead.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a distraction. Anyway, that's one way to define credibility. The most incredible way imaginable.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. It's the KQ Morning Show on Minnesota's Classic Rock, 92 KQRS.
A fitting day for me to talk about my mom, Imelda Gorman. Rough weekend for the Gorman clan. My mom passed away Saturday morning. She was 2 months shy of her 97th birthday. 8 kids and 17 grandkids and a ton of great-grandkids. I don't have time to do the math right now off the top of my head. My mom was born in Detroit in 1928. Married a man she met in 5th grade, my dad. And they bounced around from Detroit to New Jersey, back to Detroit, to Muskegon, to Maryland, to Kentucky. The whole time my dad was taking new jobs, she was raising the 8 kids, and doing so with, as I aged and as I had kids on my own, doing so with a miraculous joie de vivre, if you will. I don't know where she got her good graces. I don't know where she got her optimism and her love of life. Born and raised pretty much during the Depression at a rough time. She lost her dad when she was a little kid. She had anything but a happy, healthy, easygoing childhood. It was very rough. Maybe that's where it came from. She just recognized every day was what you made of it. In 1982, my parents divorced. My dad split, and it was the best thing that ever happened to my mom. He was a hard ass, but it really just gave her like a whole second act in her life. In her early 50s, she suddenly bloomed and blossomed to her kids. Now, other people that knew her never recognized it as such. They already knew the Imelda. We just knew Mom. And it was after my dad left that we all recognized just what an awesome woman she really was. She put us all into a local theater group when I was little. So she was always singing and acting. She played Golda and Fiddler on the Roof. She was the Mother Superior in Sound of Music and a million other shows. She worked at my high school for years. She was the director of development, which is what they say for a school with no money, the fundraiser. She opened, as a good Catholic would, a bingo parlor that just made massive bank for my school for decades. Literally kept the place open because she understood that bingo is life. As I mentioned, we had 8 kids in my family. Over the years, a dozen exchange students as well. I would ask my mom, like, you had 8 kids. Why were we constantly having exchange students? Mexico, Chile, Venezuela, Serbia, France, Uruguay, England. I mean, wherever they were from, she would take them in. And I think simplest thing was she always said, well, we can't afford to travel to these places, and you guys need to know it's a big world out there, and what better way than to have someone in our house from somewhere really far away. And even after I went off to college, after she was living alone, she still hosted students if the school needed someone. She's got, 4 or 5 now adults from around the world who look at her as their second mom because they lived with her for a year without other kids. They were just in a small town in Kentucky living with a pretty cool old lady who was always knitting blankets, grandma blankies, they were called. She stopped keeping track with how many she had knitted and given away once she hit 300. And believe me, the number's way over 1,000. In the town in Kentucky where she lived, where I moved when I was 10, the number of people that have a blanket my mom knitted for their babies. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been approached by a stranger over the years, and they say, I have a blanket from your mom. It's still the softest blanket. My kid still sleeps with it. My kids, Connell and Marley, in their 20s, still have their blankets from their grandma. She went to Mass every day of the week at St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church until she couldn't drive. That was just in the last couple of years. She lived on her own until last summer. We just put her into an assisted living place after her 96th birthday. She was really the reason everybody in my family kind of turned out the way they did. 8 kids all over the place. A journalist, someone who worked on Capitol Hill, a seamstress, a cable TV exec, a pharmaceutical rep, me. I mean, we're all over the map. And everybody in their own way has done very, very well. I mean, that's not just me being a proud younger brother. Everyone has been very successful in their chosen field. And I can tell you that's because of my mom. Our house was always clean. We always had meals at the same time. Laundry was always done on a daily basis. I mean, mandatory bedtimes. I guess there's only one way when you have 8 kids to do it, and that is very much by the book and right down a straight line. But my mom did that always with a sense of humor, always humming and singing along to whatever was in her head. She was sort of in touch with the universe as well. There was always a melody coming out of her no matter what. Now, when she would harmonize to the music at the Blockbuster or at the grocery store, that was, of course, mortifying to be with her. Even as a young adult, I would be 2 aisles away at the grocery store, and I could hear my mom humming some bizarre barbershop harmony over a Whitney Houston song, and I would just think, hey, well, you know what? It's working for her. A few nights ago, or I should say a few months ago, my mom, shortly before Christmas, she suffered a stroke, and that's ultimately is what led to her death on Saturday morning. The last few months have been really rough for her, and consequently really hard on all of us. We've all made trips down to Kentucky. I've spent a lot of time there over the last 4 months. We all have. And so Monday morning, as she slipped away, it was a blessing for her. And that leaves us now with these giant hole in all of our hearts. A few nights ago, my mom asked one of the nurses, one of the last things she said in a lucid state, she said, "I'm feeling like I could use a cheeseburger." And the nurse said, "I don't think that's a good idea. She's having great difficulty chewing and stuff." And my mom laughed and said, "Well, how about a Bud Light then?" So as it turned out, her last meal, being the good Irish Catholic that she is, was a Bud Light. We're all going to be, for the next few days, celebrating the life of my mom, Imelda Gorman. In the small town I grew up in, she's this is not just a son's pride. She's a legend. It's going to be quite something. She's in 50 years in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. She has left behind so much love and so much positivity. I know one thing right now. My mom is harmonizing and singing and scatting along right now. She's tisking the length of girl skirts forever. She belongs to the ages, and we are all just the luckiest people I know to have had her. So thanks for literally everything, Mom.
The KQ Morning Show will be right back.
I'm Steve Gorman. The Rolling Stones, Start Me Up right there. A song they wrote as a reggae tune. 1977 Paris sessions that led to the album Some Girls. That's when they recorded Start Me Up. It wasn't released for 4 or 5 years. They did a reggae song. They had done dozens of takes. And somewhere in the middle of all those, they played one time. They said, let's play it straight with a rock beat. And that's the take you just heard. They played it once, went right back to the reggae version, and forgot all about it. And 4 years later, Keith is going through old tapes and goes, "Oh, listen to that. That sounds all right, doesn't it?" And then, boom. It's good to be the Rolling Stones. You know, it's like you find a quarter in the couch and you get excited. They find Start Me Up in the couch.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Gene Simmons of Kiss, famous for a lot of things. Let's see. There's Spitting Blood. There's Breathing Fire. Mm-hmm. There's the man bun long before everybody else was on that trend. There's Makeup. There's High Heels. There's a lot of things. Also, my man apparently is a big fan of meteorology. Who knew? Gene Simmons on Fox 11 in Los Angeles decided to sit in with a local newscast specifically to give the weather. And in typical Gene fashion, it's not as seamless as you might think. Kind of awkward, kind of weird, the Gene Simmons way. Here's a little bit of Gene as weatherman.
You know, Gene's going to join me here for the weather. Gene has a little bit of weather experience. So, Gene, you show us everything you've got when it comes to doing the weather here.
Oh, and, baby, that's quite a lot.
Okay.
You look much better in real life than you do on TV.
Oh, you look great in both.
I know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the weirdest part is, though, he's really, really, really trying to just do the weather.
He is,
Yes.
and the weatherman is like throwing Kiss lyrics at him.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we all know who this is. You don't have to hit us over the head with it. Give us everything you've got, Gene. I don't know. I don't think you want Gene to give you everything he's got. I think you want Gene in very small doses.
No, check out this one.
90% chance of rain, 53 degrees, 64. Yes, you were going to.
Well, so this weekend, I'm thinking, it's looking pretty good. If people want to rock and roll all night and
They should probably party every day.
party every day,
Yeah.
it's probably looking good for that,
I
right?
think you should probably join a showbiz thing because you've got it.
Oh, that's high praise.
Lots of it.
Okay. Was
Yeah.
that a line? Did I miss a line? I don't know.
You do this every day?
Almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But never with a rock star. So
Well, that's something else.
This poor weather person.
I mean, I guess it's good that he went with rock and roll all night and party every day, because I can only imagine if he had said, I don't usually say things like this to girls your age, but when I saw you coming out of school that day, that day I knew I've got to have you. Yeah, you got to steer away from Christine 16 when Gene's doing your weather. Just a suggestion. Probably. Listen, all I'm saying is it could have gone very, very, very wrong as opposed to just oddly wrong.
Mildly wrong.
Mildly wrong. Mildly wrong Friday night in Houston. Journey was playing a gig in Houston, and in the middle of their, I think the biggest Journey song is Don't Stop Believing. Is that a fair statement? That's
Absolutely.
number one on the Journey most iconic list. As the song's building, like midway through, about to really kick off and go, the power went out. Oops.
Yeah, they had it. That whole crowd.
There's a lot to say about the power of a song people love, and you never know when you're going to need it, because man, they carried them right through. It's like an ice skating event when the music goes out and the crowd just claps along in time. I remember that old Olympic highlight. Oh my God, it's amazing. But that's cool. The guys on stage, of course, just stand there and look at each other, and if you pull the power on a band mid-song, it's real easy right then to realize, they're just dorks like the rest of us, because no band has ever known how to handle it. You just go, it's weird.
Has that ever
It's
happened to
strange.
you on stage?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and one time there's a giant festival in the Netherlands called Pink Pop.
Okay.
And we played in 1993. I think it was the second time we played Pink Pop. We were a couple songs in, and in the middle of a tune, this is in front of 60,000 people, and we're headlining this massive festival. And the Dutch always were big fans of the band. We did very well there. And as we're blasting right along, all of a sudden, the same thing, just boom, lights and sound, everything just gone. And it was being broadcast live on Dutch television. And so we just saw all slowly everyone just like wanders off to the side of the stage. And it was probably 10 minutes where we're all standing there going, what in the hell is happening? And we were just talking, and Lenny Kravitz was on the bill that day. And somebody asked me, like, someone from the sides, like, do you know what happened? And I said, no, I just heard a report. Lenny was over by the power transformers with a big hedge trimmer, which was obviously a joke.
Yeah.
What I didn't recognize was there was a TV camera right next to me, and me saying that went out over Dutch television.
Dude.
And a lot of people were like, Steve accused Lenny Kravitz. Did you hear the drummer? He accused Lenny Kravitz of sabotaging the show. And it's like the dumbest thing ever. But we just said, okay. And they said, all right, you guys ready? And we were like, well, give us a minute. And it is a strange thing because you get yourself into a headspace and then the legs get cut out. And then we went back out and, but we were still young and dumb enough to let it freak us out too much.
How was the crowd? Like, how do you get them back after just a 10-minute break for no reason?
They were very, very, very just happy that something was going to happen.
Nice.
At first it was
That's
like,
good.
they were like, but before we went back out, they all start clapping in unison, and they weren't doing the soccer Olé chant, and it wasn't Seven Nation Army because that song wasn't out yet, but there was something like that. They all found some thing to chant. The Dutch, they're They're taking it easy. They're just waiting for the lights to come back on. It was all good.
Good deal.
But that's a strange thing. The only other time I can think of a power outage, it wasn't the venue. It was the whole town.
Ooh.
We were playing we had a gig in California, Santa Cruz. And we were after sound check before the show, the entire town went out. No. And we waited a few hours, and then we were like, well, nothing to do here. We got on the bus and left. And right as we were crossing a bridge over a big gorge river that separates the town from, like, the mainland, all of a sudden in the rear view, all the lights came on. But hey, we weren't turning that bus around, man.
Oh,
we had already made our plans for the night. Those things happen. Hey, the 2025 Tee It Up Golf Card number 3, presented by Club Champion, is on sale now. Golf 7 area courses. And while doing so, save over $200. For more info or to purchase, text GOLF to 651-989-ROCK. Speaking of music news, if you plan to see ZZ Top at the Ledge Amphitheater this June, I've got some news you may be interested in. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. It's the KQ Morning Show on Minnesota's Classic Rock, 92 KQRS.
ZZ Top is playing at the Ledge in June, and it looks like you might be getting 1 out of 3 that night in terms of original members of the band. Drummer Frank Beard stepping away from the band's tour for undisclosed health reasons. The band issued a statement, said he's going to attend to a health issue that will require his focus in the near term. And much like when Dusty Hill was forced off the road with ZZ Top, and then shortly thereafter, actually, he passed away. Frank Beard will be replaced by a member of the band's crew.
Huh? Really?
Yeah, their drum tech.
Okay.
John Douglas, percussionist and drummer himself, sat in 2002. This is how they've had the same crew forever. ZZ Top. This guy sat in 2002 when Frank Beard had an emergency appendectomy. Elmore, the guy that took over as the bassist for the band, had been with them my band, the Black Crowes, opened for ZZ Top in 1991, and he was working with the band back then. So ZZ Top has held on to their people for a very long time. And, of course, I guess clearly were the smart guys who said, well, not only will we hire great crew members, make sure they can play themselves, because you never know what's going on out here. Frank and Billy Gibbons, the 2 surviving members, they're only 75 years old. So it's they've been around forever, but they're still, 75 in the year 2025. That's like 40 years ago in rock and roll terms.
Yes.
So certainly sending Frank Beard our best and hope he makes it back. That song we just heard, Legs, I watched a movie on, I don't know if it was Max or Apple TV or one of those, the movie Air, which was about the Michael Jordan getting the shoe deal with Nike a couple years ago. And it was surprisingly really enjoyable. I really liked that movie. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and it was a whole thing, Jason Bateman, about the behind the scenes. And the song Legs pops up in the middle of that movie, and I'm an old guy, so ZZ Top to me, there's pre-Eliminator and post-Eliminator. There's the 3 guys playing real instruments together and just being cool as hell. And then there's Billy Gibbons with some synthesizers and some loops and some samples, and then they become one of the biggest bands in the world, but it was very different. 70s ZZ Top is a very different animal than 80s and beyond ZZ Top. So Legs was never my favorite, but all of a sudden I hear it in that movie a couple years ago, and I'm like, man, that song's great. That's just badass. It does the job really well. And I thought, what a strange choice. Why wouldn't they have gone with LaGrange? But, of course, it was set in 1984, so LaGrange would have been out of place. It made perfect sense to have the song Legs. The number 1 song, speaking of which, ever to be in movies and TV shows. When you think about this, like, there's certain, every TV show and every movie and every series, they're pumping music in more than ever now, to the point where it's kind of beside the point. It used to be like Martin Scorsese, the first time you see Goodfellas and you hear all those sound drops, you're like, oh my God, that's perfect. Oh my God, that's perfect. And then 35 years later, I'm like, just give me a movie with nothing but dialogue. I'm tired of learning about the music supervisor's personal taste when I'm watching this. That said, the song that has been licensed and appeared in the most film and TV appearances I mean, we got the whole history of recorded music to choose from, Ryder.
Yes, of course.
Now, certain songs cost a lot more than others. Any idea what the number one song ever would be? 52 film and television appearances.
Got to be some kind of Rolling Stones, maybe. Start Me Up.
Pretty close. Montel Jordan's "This Is How We Do It."
What?
Yeah, thank you. I imagine that's the song that goes, "This is how we do it." That's the only part of it I know.
Oh, man.
It's like a K-Tel commercial where you only hear the chorus and then it goes on to the next song. Number
This
2
is
on that
how we
list.
do it.
Yeah, number 2 on the list, Salt and Peppa, Push It. What?
Well, push it real good, dude.
I guess, but I guess the songs on this list must be popular enough, but also not the top of the money chain to license.
Right, because I think pretty famously the most expensive one to license is Thunderstruck, and that's a banger.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm happy to say the third most licensed song, 49 film and TV appearances, Etta James, At Last.
Oh,
okay,
there we go. That's a winner.
song I know.
Yes.
That's one I know.
And she kills it. I love that one.
Yeah. How about Mazzy Star, Fade Into You is on the list. Mazzy Star never got beyond selling out clubs back in the day. They had one record people cared about, but boy, do they care about it, because you can't get away from Fade Into You. So good on them for writing one song that everybody will forever want to hear.
Yeah, the high school sweetheart said that was, quote, our song. And I think everybody who's my age said that. And then my husband is like, oh, do you like this Mazzy Star thing? And I told him the backstory, and that record disappeared from our house. Never to be heard from again.
Wow. I mean, retroactive jealousy is a strong indicator of something, and I'm not sure if it's really good or not. I'm not going to go down the whole list, but suffice to say, the 10th most licensed song ever with 36 film and TV appearances. For the love of God, it's Escape by Rupert Holmes, also known as the Pina Colada song.
Oh.
Yeah. That's rough.
That one's about cheating, I think. And drinking.
It's about cheating on your cheating partner. You're both cheating, and then you realize, oh, we're both cheating on each other. And I didn't know you like dancing in the rain at midnight. That's crazy. God, that song makes me want to puke. And it
Stop
did when I was a kid.
TV then.
It was no kidding. It was always. And I was around when that song was a hit, and people were like, have you heard that, Pete? It's so cute. And I was like, oh my God, just that and Torn Between Two Lovers. I just want to rip my ears off my head when they come on. We have a lot of people visit the show on occasion who happen to be comedians, and they're performing at ACME regularly. And as we say every time, ACME Comedy Club here in Minneapolis, one of the great comedy clubs in the world, one of the most iconic, one of the greats. And in case you're wondering why it's so great, I've been wondering that myself for years. Well, we've got some great answers for you. Patrick Strait has written a book called Home Club about ACME Comedy Club, the story of the great ACME. And Patrick is going to join us to talk about his book and an event that you can attend soon. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line. 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
Lewis Lee, legendary owner of ACME Comedy Club. And I mean that. We talk about it all the time. Every time a comic comes in that's performing at ACME, we say, one of the great clubs in America, one of the great comedy clubs anywhere. That's not just hyperbole. That's absolutely a fact. And in case you're wondering what made it so great, as I often have, here's some good news. Patrick Strait has written a book. It's called Home Club, Up-and-Comers and Comebacks at ACME Comedy Club. The definitive, I would imagine, book on the story of this club. And Patrick is in the studio with us right now. Patrick, thanks for coming by.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
This book, Home Club, let's just go back. When were you thinking to yourself, did it start with you being curious about the story yourself, or did you feel like you already knew and thought it was worth sharing?
No, I definitely didn't know. Lewis Lee is a very secretive man, so unless you are really able to get in his head, you don't know that whole history of ACME. But no, I wrote a book, a few years ago for the Historical Society called Funny Thing About Minnesota that was the whole backstory of Minnesota comedy, from the 70s all the way through the 2000s. And as I was doing that and I got the chance to talk to Lewis a little bit more, I said, there's more there to that particular piece of the story. So I kind of say if that first book was like the history of Minnesota music, this is like my First Avenue book. This is really like that venue that pushed it over the edge and really has its own storied history, even beyond the comedy history of the state.
Sure, and Lewis himself. I mean, it's not quite Game of Thrones, but it's pretty epic. I mean, what this guy has done in his life. Coming over to America as a teenager, I mean, on one hand, it's just a great immigrant story, but on the other, the last guy on earth anybody would have tagged at the airport and said, I bet he's going to run an iconic comedy club one day.
If you meet Lewis Lee, I mean, he's all of maybe, 5'6", 5'7", quiet, Chinese immigrant. And yeah, I mean, if you meet this guy, you think, yeah, this is a guy who's going to be, tussling with the comedy giants right here. But he did it. Like you said, he came here. He spoke no English. He learned it. He learned all about comedy. He almost died in a car accident. He was in a coma in the name of his, comedy pursuits. Came back around, and he's built this comedy empire that's been around for 34 years now almost, which is pretty incredible. And like you said, I mean, it's funny because if you talk to people about Lewis Lee, especially comedians, they talk about him like the Godfather. It's like, oh, it's Lewis Lee, like there's these questions, there's this mystery, there's this aura about him. And when you sit down and talk to the guy, A, he's hilarious, B, he's very wise, and C, he's the nicest guy you'll meet. So no, it was a great opportunity, and it's great to kind of get inside of his head and really learn how this whole thing happened and what makes him tick.
I think a really simple way to describe to explain this the success of ACME and the consistent success is he's one of the few people in that realm who isn't trying to make it about him on any level. I mean, he has always put the focus on the comics themselves.
He has told me that he himself has done everything except tell jokes. He said he will serve bar.
Yeah.
He will, I've seen him try to help bouncers kick guys out, kick drunks out. He'll do it all, but yeah, like you said, he's not trying to be a kingmaker. He's not trying to be the guy who's going to be the star of the show. He's not going to be the guy who everybody says, oh my gosh, Lewis Lee is the reason why Minnesota comedy is here. But, whether he likes it or not, that's the truth. And people still talk about him that way. And I was actually really surprised, but really excited that he let me tell that story because he is such a private guy and such kind of a humble guy. And yeah, I mean, he, years ago, as an example, he took down, there was a sign on the stage at ACME that said ACME Comedy Company, and he took it down because he thought that it took away from the performers themselves, and he really wanted them to feel like it was their club when they were up there. He didn't even want them to feel like, oh, I'm at ACME's club. Nope, he wanted them to say, this is my stage, this is my time, and he took that down. That's the kind of guy he is.
I say this a lot about clubs, music clubs, comedy clubs, but more often it's restaurants. But there's something there's a vibe that you just either have or you don't. The food can be great and the decor can be great, but you still don't want to go back. You still don't lose track of time when you're there. There's just something certain people have where they just make a place right. It's the simplest way to say it. And ACME, I get the feeling, was pretty much there from the beginning, but not without a lot of challenges. They've had serious ups and downs. Despite comics loving the place, it's not like this has been a guaranteed success.
No, and it's funny because that club, it didn't start with ACME. That was a comedy club before, and it was kind of one of those, every 90 days for a while, it felt like it was changing names and changing owners. So, the space, like you said, Steve, the space was there. The idea was there, the comedy was there, but it wasn't clicking. There was something missing. They weren't doing it the right way. And Lewis Lee was the guy who figured it out, And it's funny because if you talk to him and you read the book, he is the guy who did not want to own a comedy club. The comedy club kind of found him, in that space particularly. If he wouldn't have gotten a good deal, if he wouldn't have had all those stars aligned just the right way, we wouldn't have ACME Comedy. And so it's kind of funny because as much as he was trying to get away from it at one point, comedy wouldn't let him go, is kind of what I like to say. And it's funny to read that story because, yeah, if it's not for Lewis Lee, ACME doesn't exist. And I think if it's not for ACME, Lewis Lee doesn't become the person that he is today. So, I mean, really, I think they needed each other. So that was a really cool part of the story.
We're talking with Patrick Strait. The book is called Home Club. It's released next Tuesday, the 25th, and then Wednesday, the 26th, you've got a pretty cool event going on at ACME.
We are getting Lewis Lee on stage. First time, last time, only time. We're doing a big homecoming book launch celebration. Think late night talk show, think live podcast, however you want to call it. Me and Lewis are going to get up there. We've got a insane lineup of comics who are coming into town for this. You know, Chad Daniels and Tim Slagle and J. Elvis Weinstein and Cy Amundsen, and all these guys are coming into town. They're going to get on stage. They're going to tell their deep, dark Acme secrets. Lewis is going to tell some stories that nobody has ever heard before. You know, it's going to be a great time, and it's going to be something where we're really going to get to hear from the man himself. And I know that he is not necessarily loving the idea of being in front of an audience for 90 minutes, but he's doing it, and it's going to be a wild one. So if there was ever a night, I don't know, if there was ever a night to heckle or a night to definitely not heckle, this is that night.
The book is fantastic. I got a copy a couple weeks ago. In the preface, I love the way, I'll just share. I don't want to spoil too much, but Lee found his biggest challenges coming from inside: pride, guilt, joy, sadness, anger, and naturally laughs. And it makes me think about the fact that comedy, as much as we go and see comics and have a good time, nobody's getting up on that stage and holding a microphone because their life is so peachy, because they haven't had a lot of trials and tribulations. In fact, it's the challenges of figuring out who you are and making it in society and dealing with what the weird hand you've been dealt that puts most people up on that stage. And Lewis's story is as grueling and as riveting as anybody that's ever performed at that club could possibly be. And in fact, you know, he's already fully established, and then the city comes after him. They're going to take away his parking lot at some point. And there's a whole chapter about that battle with the parking lot across the street. It's like no matter what happens in his life, there's a curve, it seems, right around every straight is followed by an S curve.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, you know, I think a buddy of mine, I think he's been in here before, Nate Abshire, says in the book that, you know, comedy is for the losers. That's what he says. He goes, this is not a winner's profession. You're not just killing it in life and you say, yep, comedy is the next obvious step for me. And I think, you know, Lewis Lee he's right there in line with that. You know, he just kind of had one rough patch after another. And like you said, I mean, that's something that's continued for him. But at the same time, you know, and I think this is very cliche, but Lewis is punk rock, man. I mean, a lot of that stuff that you talk about, the parking lots and, you know, sticking up in making some kind of questionable business decisions, not in terms of that they were bad, but just in terms of they didn't make money sense, but they made artistic sense. You know, that's just who he is as a person. And that's a really cool story because he's an artist first kind of guy. And even though he's never been on that stage, you know, he understands, he knows what that's like. He knows what the heart of being a comic is like. And he really lives it. And he's not afraid to push back on establishment. He's not afraid to put up the folks that he thinks make the most sense, who are going to be the most artistically fulfilling to go see at a show. And he's still doing that stuff now, you know, 30 plus years later.
As I said, we have a lot of performers at Acme on this show and have for years and will continue to. For anybody who's curious about the club itself and the man behind the club, Lewis Lee, the book is Home Club, Up-and-Comers and Comebacks at Acme Comedy Company. Excuse me. Patrick Strait, best of luck with the book. Next Wednesday night at Acme, you should do what you can to go spend some time with Patrick and Lewis and a bunch of comics with a lot of history at Acme. That's going to be a fun night. Thanks for coming in and all the best with the book.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You got it. All right, there you have it. And by the way, I did say I got the book a couple weeks ago. I sat down. I read the book in 2 sittings. I just blasted right through it. It's absolutely fantastic. It is available everywhere you can get a book next Tuesday, the 25th. Top 5 at 9 coming up. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. It's the KQ Morning Show on Minnesota's Classic Rock, 92 KQRS.
Before you run out and get hammered on all your green suds, let's give you the top 5 at 9 right now. For your Monday, the brackets have been revealed. Auburn is your top overall seed on the men's side of the tournament. UCLA, number 1 on the women's side.
All right.
I'm looking at the top 4 seeds in the men's. Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. To which I go, really? Okay, good job, guys. I had no idea. I pay so little attention to college basketball anymore after a childhood and adolescence and early adulthood of loving the sport. Now it's just another one of those things I don't pay attention to until this week. I will put the tournament on, and I will watch the buzzer beaters, and I'll look for Cinderella, and then I'll realize that when it comes down to the Final Four, it'll be number 1, number 2, or number 3 seeds across the board, because more often than not, that's what happens. On the women's side, UConn is not a number 1 seed, but they are a number 2 seed. Paige Beckers most likely playing her final college basketball this month. She'll be a top pick in the WNBA draft in a couple weeks from after the tournament's over, I think, and then, off to the races she goes. Interesting to note, on the men's side of the bracket, on the men's bracket, there are 8 teams from the Big Ten, none of whom are named Minnesota.
Nope.
And on the women's side, 12 teams without the word Minnesota involved. Gopher basketball. Get
Such
it
a bummer.
together. Come on. It was like, I mean, you have 12 teams from one conference in the tournament. We gotta pick up the slack here, Gophers. Let's do this. Number 4 on your top 5 at 9. There may very well be Minnesota I'm going to speak a little slower. Minnesota may very well designate their first official state fossil.
Okay.
And the fossil will be of the giant beaver.
All right. Giant beavers.
The giant beaver will be the state's official fossil. Trying to introduce young students to a new species. Came to him, middle school students actually got involved and said, this is what we think should be the state fossil. The giant beaver, we haven't seen one for about 10,000 years, but they believe that this bastard was 7 feet long and weighed over 200 pounds.
My goodness.
That's a lot of If a beaver the size of my shoe can bring down a tree, what the hell could a giant beaver bring down? My God.
I am proud that we turned this over to middle schoolers and they decided to make a beaver joke. That makes me real happy.
That's I mean
there's hope for the future.
And I'm sure in any renderings they came up with, the beaver was always in the water, so therefore you would have a wet beaver at all times. Leave it to the middle schoolers to always deliver the goods.
Yes.
Number 3 in your top 5 at 9, Don Gorski in Wisconsin, a man who gets a shout out every time he hits a new milestone. Hit 35,000 on Saturday. What milestone is that, you ask? 35,000 steps on that day? No, please. 35,000 pennies in a jar?
Sure.
35,000 marbles in the trunk of his car? No. Don Gorski has eaten 35,000 Big Macs in his life. He has every receipt for every Big Mac he's ever purchased and eaten to prove it. This goes back to 1972. So check this out. Don Gorski, a man who admits and openly discusses the fact that he has OCD. Yeah, no kidding. The fact that he went into a McDonald's in 1972 and ordered a Big Mac, and he really thought it was great. And so he said, you know what? That was great. Can I have 2 more of those? 3 Big Macs. 3 Big Macs at a sitting.
All right.
Went back later the same day and had 6 more.
Damn.
So he kicked off his Big Mac quest with 9 in one day. Over the years, he has pretty much limited, not a lot of 9 in a days, but these days it's more like just making sure, his health is involved. He's in his 70s. Big Macs aren't known to be that great for you, I don't think. Nah. So he's been slowing it down, but he wanted to make sure he hit 35,000 on the nose, and he wanted to do it on a Saturday where he could have a big crowd ready. So he slowed it down, just one a day for a few days, and then bingo, 35K this Saturday. Here's a little bit of Don talking about it.
You better appreciate this, because I say I had to slow down to 1 a day for 3 days here. It's driving me nuts. So this is definitely 35,000. It's no more, no less. I've counted every single one. Excuse me.
There we go. Good job.
Yeah, for everybody who says like, well, when I was a kid, there was no such thing as the spectrum. Yeah, there was. We just talked about it in different terms. We said, oh, no, that guy just eats a Big Mac every day. And everybody acted like that was totally normal. Nah, no problem at all. God bless you, Don. The fact that he is he's 71 years old and he's got 35,000 Big Macs down that digestive tract and he's still feeling and doing pretty well. Godspeed, man. Let's get this guy to 80 and let's see if he can't get 15,000 more to hit the even 50K. I believe in you, Don. Number 2 in your top 5 at 9, the Minnesota Vikings still making moves before the draft. They have traded for 49ers running back Jordan Mason. Locked him down with a 2-year deal. Now, Mason with the Niners was a backup behind Christian McCaffrey. And then McCaffrey got hurt last year. Mason jumps into the starting lineup, 789 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's not bad work. This is a way to shore up. Now, they've already signed Aaron Jones, I guess, so he'll be your starter. But to have a solid backup role, despite the fact that the Aaron Rodgers nonsense still continues to swirl.
I saw a bunch of that, yeah.
I think this says, to me, more than anything, the Vikings believe J.J. McCarthy's going to be the guy. They want to have not one but two very solid running backs in there. They're not going to ask J.J. to throw the ball 40 times a day. They're going to establish a nice hard core ground game, not unlike his national championship season with Michigan. Get the backfield straight, and then we'll slowly bring him along slinging the ball. At least that's my hopeful side of my brain talking, because I will talk myself into anything if it keeps Aaron Rodgers away from the Minnesota Vikings. Last thing we need to do is less than we would with some scrub than we will with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we can lose without him. Why lose with him? Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to bring in a guy who will divide the locker room, or at least not inspire the locker room, and you'll still lose games. I want to give a quick morning shout out to Chaska, Minnesota. Glad to have our friends from Chaska with us. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, it is St. Patrick's Day. Green beer. Ryder, have you had green beer before?
Of course I've had green beer before. Sometimes that's your only option.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And was the hangover any different? No, it's fine.
Same
it's
hangover.
Just die. It's all the same. Shamrock shakes, people making green spaghetti. You look around the things people do. The grasshopper cocktails are big. Green whiskey sours, green lemonade. They call it lame-aid. That's a little strange. Here's the deal. If you feel the need to eat something green, just do what I do. Have a salad and then leave your other food the way it should be.
Yes, be nice to your guts.
Be nice to your guts. You're gonna drink too much anyway.
Yes.
Might as well don't add green
green eggs and ham.
Yeah, thank you. Green eggs and ham. Don't add green brownies to the mix.
Ugh.
Just eat a salad and then go crazy with the rest of it. My greatest and worst ever St. Patty's Day, I just realized, was 30 years ago today, 1995.
Oh, yeah? Okay. What happened?
I woke up in a great St. Patrick's Day city known as New York, and my wife and my cousin, who was out working with the band at the time, the three of us went down to the Village, and we started off the day at a place called McSorley's, the oldest bar in New York City that is still in the same place it opened. It's pre-Civil War.
Yes.
McSorley's. And they have their own beer. You just get a light or a dark, and when you order one, they bring you two. It's my kind of bar.
Oh, yeah.
Started there early because we knew it would be packed. By the time we left, you were going to be waiting on the sidewalk for 2 hours to get in there. And then we just made our way around Lower Manhattan, Irish pub after Irish pub after Irish pub. And one of the earliest turn-ins, I think by 6 p.m., I was back in the hotel snoring louder than an M80. Just absolutely mindless. I mean, we started at 8 a.m., don't remember the last 4 hours of the day. Woke up the next day going, that was really dumb, but I'm pretty sure I had a great time.
Excellent. Yeah, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's very true. It's important to know these things, kids. There's your top 5 at 9 for a St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of sounds almost redundant and silly, but the question needs to be asked for the rest of the day. What you going to do? Ryder, what you going to do today?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is run home because I'm not wearing a single stitch of green. And even our local boss, like the soccer fan boss, is wearing a bright green Kelly shirt today. So now I know I really messed up.
It's important to get some green on as soon as possible.
And then inspired by sports and music history, I'm definitely going to pull out my Big Star record in honor of Alex Chilton.
Very nice.
Yes. What about you?
Very nice.
How was the show on Friday night? Did you make it out to Astor House?
I did make it out to Astor House. It was fantastic. Had a very nice night. Bunch of friends I hadn't seen in a while. A few folks I didn't realize were going to be there. So that was great.
Oh, nice.
Really enjoyed it. Scarlet Goodbye is a fantastic local band. Craig Johnson played a set as well. He's one of my favorites. Great night. As I talked about earlier in the show, my mom passed away Saturday morning. So what I'm going to do now is prepare myself for a few pretty rough days. A lot of Irish Catholics in Kentucky over the next couple days are going to be celebrating the wondrous life of my mom, just shy of 97 years old, and it's going to be beautiful and awful and all the things that it's supposed to be. So that's what I got on my agenda. I did check the KQ Talk and text line, and
dude,
there are an awful lot of
heartwarming,
beautiful texts from all of you out there. Thank you very much. I just read all of those, and I just made me cry all over again. So piss off, and thanks for that. It's really, really lovely, and it means the world to me. So thank you guys for that.
Get the KQ Morning Show podcast wherever you listen. 92 KQRS.